Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today, happy 20th anniversary. A few months late, but who cares about that? Um, Danny Phantom. Talk about this is like a nostalgia trip right there. I can't believe this show is 20 years old. Fuck me,
We're getting
but
old.
yeah, like I remember when this came out. I remember when
Same.
this was new. And you know what? Might as well. Let's maybe talk about this first. How were you exposed to Danny Phantom? Was it like
Lord,
were
you're
you
asking me to
there?
remember something 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
I mean, I remember, so maybe you have
Um,
remember.
I think because this was Nickelodeon, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's Nickelodeon.
This was kind of back during that area when Nickelodeon was doing really well, I feel, right? Because like they
Hmm.
were kind of like top dog in the cartoon space because I believe it was like Danny Phantom, the Fairly Odd Parents was around
Yeah,
this
Fairly Odd
time.
Parents was in its heyday. SpongeBob had the movie later that year,
I think
and
Jimmy Neutron as well, wasn't that
Jimmy
Nickelodeon?
Neutron too. Yeah,
And
Jimmy Neutron
then
as well.
was
Ironically, we
Avatar
mentioned
at this
before.
time?
Avatar, I think, was a bit later, but
It was pretty
uh,
close though.
yeah. But it's funny that we mentioned those four shows first when there was that remember that crossover game where all four of these characters met.
Oh yeah, well I mean there's also like the crossover show, right? Yeah.
Well, no, Danny Phantom never crossed over with
Oh no,
anything,
no,
but there
Danny
was
Phantom did, yeah.
there was the Fairly Odd Parents Jimmy Neutron one. Yes. But yeah, talking about that, Danny Phantom was really in this time when Nickelodeon was like at its peak,
Yeah.
maybe, and you could argue here and there, even if you don't look just at the Nicktoons, they also, I think, Drake and Josh was around that time
Mm.
also. So, like, I think there was a point where everything I watched was just Nickelodeon because it just had everything.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I think like at the time Cartoon Network wasn't really competing all that much really.
Yeah, I think,
They had some stuff here or there,
like
but
maybe Teen Titans they was what they had, but the point is, Danny Phantom was like there when Nickelodeon couldn't really do any wrong, at
pretty
least
much.
as far as memory serves, and for the most part, I just remember it being another good one,
Yeah.
and I just remember because I just remember this really, this advertisement for it, which was basically Danny narrating about his life that he thought he knew who he was, that he just has, he has two dog parents, a meddling older sister, a girl he has a crush on, and a bully who wants to crush him. But ever since he came to high school, that boy started to disappear, and then you see some action shots. There you go.
Mm.
Yeah, watch this show now. And I'm like, interesting. But if you guess what got me into watching the show, you'll never get it. Take your wildest guess.
Somehow it was a Sonic thing.
No, no. Weirdly enough, no.
I have no idea then.
Well, there was a Nickelodeon crossover basketball game. And my friends and I didn't know who that black hair dude was. And then we're like, wait, isn't this Danny Phantom kid? And we just started playing as him in teams. And it's like, oh, wow, he's cool. We like him. And that's how we decided to check out the show.
Interesting.
Yes, there was a Nickelodeon basketball game. Look it up. I'm not making it up. It was real.
I'm not surprised.
S- so anyway, so I just remember I was kind of there when it started, and I followed along. Were you the same when it came out? Like you
Yeah, more
remember
or
it?
less. I think I remember kind of just catching it when it first started and then just kind of following along from there.
Hmm.
Like a lot of
So
the
not
Nicktoon shows at that time, right? Just kind of
yeah,
like, this is fun, this is all right, and then just kind of following along from there.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I did for I think though, and I want to say this before we actually start getting into the nitty gritty, and this is going to be just about season one for the record, but I just want to say, no matter what I say about this show, be it even if I mention that some episodes aren't as good as I remember them, even if I'm going to say that the show aged at some point because it has been 20 years, what can you do? I love this show. I absolutely love this show. I've watched it beginning to end multiple times, and I'm sure I'm gonna do it again in the future. So keep in mind, everything I say, good or bad, is out of pure love for this show. It's a big part of my life. I'm not going to trash on it too much, but I just want to say that keeping this in mind, I adore this show.
Yeah, and
But it also aged.
a little bit, but I would say it still kind of holds up fairly well.
No, like there's a good chance that if you're watching this for the first time, you'll be decently entertained. But there are some 2000s in it.
No,
There are
fair,
some
yeah.
you can feel like the 2000s to a bit, and you know that there are some things that wouldn't fly today in the kind of like let's say if this show existed when Twitter was a thing, people were gonna get mad about some parts. I assure you.
I feel like that would happen no matter what, though. But
Yeah,
I get what you're saying, though. Yeah.
yeah, fair enough. But either way, I think though overall, Danny Phantom is a nostalgia childhood memory of mine, and I still enjoy the show a lot, even if some parts did age rather poorly. And would you say you're in the same boat?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think like a fun watch, very enjoyable, but it definitely not on the same level as say like Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Like
Well,
definitely has
let's be honest.
problems and stuff.
What Nicktoon compares to Avatar: The Last
I mean,
Airbender? Like, come on,
fair, but
But actually, interestingly enough, might as well talk about it. I think this was really the first time American TV did something like this, where there was like an overarching plot in a show, and like to an extent, Danny Phantom isn't like with Avatar that you kind of need everything in order to get the full experience. I won't say it's like that, but there is continuity between
well, let's be
episodes.
clear. I think you mean like American shows. I think were doing this before, but American cartoon shows,
Yeah, American cartoons, more like more. Yeah,
I don't,
that's.
I don't remember. I think there might have been one or two, maybe a few more, but like it was very small. Like it was a very small handful at the very least, if any, right?
Yeah, but
Because
I
American
think this was the first time.
cartoons for the longest time were like a lot of people don't know this because it wasn't this way back in the day, but because it's not this way now anymore, really. But a lot of American cartoons back in the day were very episodic in their
Yeah,
nature. It was
like
episode of
again,
the week
I
stuff.
go back to when we did Avatar: The Last Airbender season 2, where I said, "You think waiting a whole year for with a cliffhanger ending is annoying now when Avatar did it, like probably the first one who did it all those years ago." This was true pain, people. Now I'm
Mm.
just kind of immune to it and I'm making fun of it. No, 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 no. Back then we had it rough. But so Danny Phantom isn't on that kind of level of continuity, but there is continuity. And for the record, I am saying spoilers right now because like it's a 20-year-old show. If you're listening to this, you've probably seen it already. So there's no point, let's be honest.
Mhm.
So, so yeah, I think this was it was also an interesting show in terms of what Nickelodeon put out and also, and what how it kind of influenced to some degree the way American cartoons started to format themselves.
Yeah.
Like you'll get your monster of the week, but you'll also get some sort of continuity. Like when Jazz figures out Danny's identity, that's kept over. They're not just ignoring it. That's a big part in the episode, and it's a big part in the rest of the show.
Oh, yeah, and you see like returning villains come back with
Hmm.
like, "Hey, you screwed me over before. I'm here to get revenge this time and really make your life miserable."
Yeah, and to be honest, some of those overarching parts don't conclude in the best of ways, Valerie. But all in due time. Let's talk about season 1 for now. Over what?
Well,
Looking
I think
back at it.
we should like before we get into it a little bit, talk about like Butch Hartman. Probably one of the
The elephant in the room.
yeah, not a great dude.
Talk about a person I really, because I was big into Fairly Odd Parents, I was huge into Danny Phantom, and suddenly hearing uh, there's a reason I refer to him as Butch Fartman from now on.
Yeah, definitely has some history there.
He has some takes,
We should
and
tell
he has
everyone what we're talking about a little bit.
which one? There are so many,
Yeah,
but
in a
I tell
general
you what,
sense.
in the general sense, let's say he said some stuff that is kind of. If you don't know, he has a podcast. I think it's called a Talking Bubble or something. And there's a point there where he actually tells Tara Strong, the voice of Timmy Turner, that the previous voice actress for Timmy Turner in like the pilots for Fairly Odd Parents, that voice actress committed suicide, and he literally told Tara Strong to her face, one of the reason she committed suicide was because you took her job.
Now, let's be clear, right? Like,
And it gets worse from here, folks.
yeah, like he's not. It's like there are worse people than him, right? Let's be clear with
Yeah,
that. But like, still not a
definitely.
great dude. Like he's done and said some stuff. It's like, yeah, you kind of fucked up there, but that sort of deal. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
your
Have you
mileage
heard
may
about
vary in how you feel about him.
this Christian streaming platform?
Yeah,
Sometimes the fact that people have this kind of confidence is not inspiring, it's scary.
mm. But
M-
ignoring all that
Regardless,
for just a minute,
yeah.
I do want to at the very least say like he was pretty much one of the faces. Like I would say him and Gendy Tartakovsky, yeah,
Mhm.
were the two people who kind of changed up cartoons for the U.S. and the West, essentially, right?
Yeah, I can
Like
definitely
they
agree
were
with that.
definitely the
Yeah.
faces of what felt like, at the very least, a cartoon heyday, right? Like during that early 2000, early mid and somewhat into the teens 2000s time of like this is kind of like almost a resurgence and kind of a golden era for cartoons again.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So
Um, and
he
now
doesn't
when it
deserve
comes
that
to,
credit, but I'll at least
I
give him
think
that. Him and
though,
Gendy Tartakovsky
the
definitely were like the face
the
of that.
to be honest, the more we talk about it, I think talking about Butch Hartman makes more sense in season three,
No, fair.
since
Yeah, I
well,
just wanted to bring it up
since,
briefly.
yeah, because let's say season three is the point where he starts transforming into the Butch we know today. But
Mm.
let's put this to the side for now. We'll
Yeah,
talk
no,
more about
fair.
it.
Just know
So
he lingers like a shadow.
yeah, no, and there was definitely an elephant in the room. So we addressed it. Yes, it's a Butch Hartman show. Yes, Butch Hartman said and did things that are terrible.
Mm.
This has nothing to do with Danny Phantom for now. So let's move on. And also considering he's no longer employed on Nickelodeon, that means he's not really attached to this show besides being the guy who created it. So you can take a leave.
Fair enough.
Anyway, talking so Danny Phantom season one. I think overall a decent enough first season. You can definitely tell that they're trying to figure themselves out in some areas, but overall a good first season.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a good introduction to the show and what you can kind of expect from it moving forward.
Hmm.
And I would argue that season one is still like season one holds up, it's strong, but I think definitely season two and season three are better than season one, I feel, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
It has been a
Um,
while.
I'll say season one might be the most consistent of the three.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like it's the most consistent in terms of most of the episodes are good, if not great. But And but I think the highs of season two are just higher than this season. As for season three, that's something that we're gonna get into. But season one, I think if you're looking in, if you're just, if you have to, if you're giving yourself, I'm gonna watch a few episodes from season one and see if I like it, you'll be entertained enough that you'll want to keep watching. You'll want more of this, I believe. And there's a bit of a hurdle to jump over at the start. Like again, like I said, they were, you can tell they were figuring themselves out, but then again, what show wasn't trying to figure itself out in the first season? And so good first attempt. Now for the episode, I will say though, something that I really like about the show in general, so might as well talk about it now since it's the first season. I love how the title cards are essentially every episode has its own title card, which is essentially a comic book cover.
Mm.
Like they're so well composed, they are so well done. Like they give you like the gist of the episode super well most of the
Yeah.
time. So if I have to give the show credit for just one thing, I love those title cards. They're great.
No, fair. Agree. It was.
Mm,
It was a really neat thing to see and do.
mm. Like again, this is something that carried over from Fairly Odd Parents, but I think the superhero genre for this really made it feel like wow, you're actually getting a comic book cover for this TV show. So
Mm.
that's really cool. And now talking about the first episode, Mystery Meat. Originally this was the show's pilot before, and then Nickelodeon was like, actually we want more episodes right away. So but this is basically our pilot, our first episode. This is one that I can already tell you today this episode wouldn't fly.
Yeah. Well, in what way do you think that? I'm
Oh,
curious.
okay. Okay, for the record, there's nothing like bad about it to
No,
some degree,
no.
like and it also introduces the characters relatively well. It shows you Danny's powers well. It shows you Danny's duality with his powers, and you know that he has to live with parents who are hunting ghosts, and then he has the sister who thinks she knows best and everything and
Yeah.
everything. And you know Sam is also introduced as this as I am unique. I am doing my thing, and she's also kind of have her scuffle with her parents. Parker isn't all that well developed, besides the fact that he likes meat, which I guess is a trait, but oh well. And you also get the bully, you get the teacher, and all that stuff. But I think though the plot in general of this episode is that Sam decides to make the entire school menu ultra recycle vegetarian,
Yeah.
considering, and again, as a non-vegetarian, but I started hanging out with some vegetarians. I have vegetarian friends. How much do you think this representation of vegetarian would fly today when there are so many veggie options for that are supposed to take over the meat? You
Well,
know,
I don't think most people would care nowadays, right? But like, I get
I
what you're
wouldn't.
saying though, because it's like
I
it's a
I'm
thing
not
of like
necessarily say I'm not
it's a
necessarily
very
saying
caricature, right? It's a very caricature of a vegetarian
it's very caricature,
and a
and
bad
I
one.
wouldn't really, and not, and for all intents and purposes, I'm not saying that you have to like full respect, but this is the main plot point in the episode,
Mm.
which is why I bring this up because as she's making that change, this is what triggers our villain, the lunch lady, into bad guy mode.
Mm.
And this is the point, and this is the point where I'm like, oh, okay. And again, the episode is also kind of like about veggies versus meat. So I'm like, huh, I'm not sure if this would fly today, but and even then, I also think, but I think it is kind of funny to like, oh, okay, there's because this is also a high school show to some degree, right? This is
Mm.
really old school Spider-Man in a sense. There's the teenager who is also a hero trying to get used to his powers. So I kind of like the idea that the villain is essentially the most innocent thing you could ever think of, right? The lunch lady at school. Who would be afraid of that? Well, they found a way.
Fair enough.
and But I will say this episode kinda actually goes against something Butch Hartman later says about the show, and again, we'll talk about it when season 3 comes up. But the lunch lady is clearly a ghost of a dead person.
Yeah,
Remember that for me, will you? Remember that when we get
yeah.
to season 3.
Keep that in mind. Yeah,
Yeah. Keep that in mind.
she's literally resurrected because like she hates the fact that the school menu was changed and it no longer has meat. Like that's kind of the whole point.
Hmm.
And it's like you said, it's a meat versus vegetarian thing. And I believe the show ends with like you know what? Like yeah, we're sticking with the old menu. Fuck vegetarianism. Not necessarily fuck it, but like
It's not that that's the thing. The menu change doesn't really go anywhere. Like
no.
Danny defeats the lunch lady, and then Mr. Lancer just has all of the Danny, Sam, and Tucker clean up the remains from the fight, and that's it. We don't even know if the menu was changed back to normal. We can only assume.
I assume it was.
Hmm.
Because fuck you,
But
vegetarians. That's right. You
yeah.
suck. No.
No, 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 no. Again, I have vegetarian friends. They are cool, cool people, and I admire them for that. But also,
Well, this
I'm not.
like
This,
it's definitely a product of its time, right? Because this kind of came
yeah,
out when it was a thing of like, oh, vegetarians, they're awful. They're trying to do the blah blah blah, and now everybody's like, there's vegetarian options for so much stuff. Nobody cares anymore.
yeah. Like you have a veggie burger, you have a veggie steak. Even it's like there are so many
And a
other
lot of
things,
it's
and
really good. Some of it's
yeah,
not, but a lot of it
and
nowadays
and
is.
also let's not to mention that today we there's vegans too. So yeah, the overall plot may not have aged well, but I think there are still some funny stuff like like Jack and Maddie thinking that Jazz is a ghost and trying to capture her is entertaining if you
Mm,
ignore the fact that they're literally abusing their own kid. and
details. Don't
and
ask
and then
questions.
I do enjoy the fact that we see, even though it's implied that Danny has his powers for a whole month by this point, but you
Yeah,
still see, and without seeing too much of the origin, because it's portrayed really well in the theme song. You still see him trying to get used to it, and that's really entertaining, and also has some funny stuff. Like when he goes, well, if the superhero thing doesn't work out, I can always be a waiter. And by with the way he manages to catch those plates relatively well.
fair.
So I good pass a very passable pilot, I would say. Like if you watch it, you'll get the gist for the show, and you'll most likely want to come back for more.
Yeah,
Speaking of episode 2, parental bonding. Now, I just want to say we are going with the Wikipedia listing. I know that there's the whole thing of parental bonding is technically the third episode in production order, but it can fit it away. It doesn't really matter.
yeah.
So anyway, parental bonding. I think this is a good one. I think I would say that it's a better episode than episode 1. I enjoyed the idea of now really we're starting to play with Danny's duality, right? Of having to be the kid, having to be the superhero. I
Yeah.
like that. And
As well as like we learn a new ghost ability, and they're kind of like growing some, so we like see a little bit more and we see like continuation.
mhm. Yeah, and on that note, I also like that they're kind of trying to do the thing that they did with with the Phantom Thomas in the pilot, where we're introduced to this gadget that they made, that the Phantoms made really early on, and that ends up solving the problem. And then they just kind of forget about it, Phantom Thomas, to basically everything. But even though we see more gadgets, but the Phantom Thomas is always the one that captures the ghosts, is what I mean. So that being said, it also introduced to Paulina.
The
Is this the
crush.
good? I just have to say this was funny to me because I had a teacher named Paulina in middle school,
Uh-huh.
and we hated her fucking guts.
Mm-hmm.
So it was funny to suddenly being like, all right, there's this that when I'm like introduced to this teacher and I'm like, all right, there is this character in the show. Oh God, this is not gonna work at all. I
Mhm.
couldn't take math seriously for a whole year, but what can you do?
Fair enough.
Well, with that being said, though, Paulina is one of these characters that I get why you're here. You're not terrible, but I'm not a big fan. I'm not a hater.
It's one of those like looking back, like this is meant to be kind of like the love interest before you get to the actual love interest, and then you get to
Mhm.
the actual love interest. I believe
Speaking
is
of
how this show went, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering
uh,
correctly.
speaking of future love interest, Valerie is introduced in this episode.
Was it this one?
Remember? Yeah, she's like
It's been a while.
Tucker asks her to the dance, and then
Oh,
she
that's
tells them,
right. This is the
well, unless I'm
dragon
gonna.
one. That's right.
Yes, yes, it's the dragon one. Yep. We swear we watched the shows before we covered it.
I
But
will admit I didn't get to refresh like I really wanted to for this one. Hopefully for season 2 and season 3 I'll be able to refresh more. But
yeah.
I was surprised about how much I remembered though, even without like getting the full refresh that I wanted, like as just a bit of a side note real quick, right? I was
Which I
surprised at
guess
how
it
much
is.
of the show did stick with me. Like we didn't even talk about it, right? The fucking intro. I still remember that shit.
He's Phantom. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
like
good intro.
that
I
still
think
sticks with me. Like I can still we're like, hey, Danny Phantom, he was just 14. Like I still remember that. Like that's just how like catchy that was back in the day.
there's a fucking controversy about if the singer says, "Yo, Danny Phantom, he was just
I'm
14,"
not
as
nah.
opposed to "Young Danny Phantom, he was just 14."
Nah.
People are actually talking about this. This is a debate. But
Well, I'm
to
here to
be
tell
honest,
you, you're
yeah.
wrong. It's yo. Get out of here.
Yeah, now it's confirmed to be Yo at this point. Also, isn't it kind of redundant to say that a young person is 14?
Yeah, I agree. It's yo. If you thought it was young, you're wrong. Get out of here. Debate over. I have declared.
hmm but I will say though that speaking of music, the do 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 is such an iconic rhythm.
It
You
is.
may get sick of it if you binge the show, but my God, it has a beat. It gets you pumped
Yeah.
into some degree.
It sticks with you. Like I will give it credit. Like you don't forget that. Like when you said like I because I remember right when you said like hey let's cover Danny Phantom, we've never done that, we haven't done that yet, like we should do that at one point. I'm like yeah sure I'd be up for that. Like my immediate thought went to like the intro and I could just remember a good portion of that intro, a song and
Mhm.
everything. Hadn't seen the show in years before then. It's like I could still
That's
remember
good.
that and I was like man I'm surprised how much this stuck with me, just kind of thinking back on it and everything.
Indeed. So yeah, overall, so back
Yeah,
to
sorry,
parental bonding.
side tangent
We
over.
all good. So I just love how we are introduced to Valerie like she's nothing in this episode because apparently they didn't figure out that she's going to be a big part of the show yet. So she's just kind of there,
Background
like
character.
and but I also like that basically she Tucker asks her out to the dance, and she's like, "Oh, unless I'm suddenly become dateless, there's no chance." And then the guy who was supposed to to go with her, Kwan, he goes, "Oh, by the way, someone asked me if I want to go, so you're dateless now." And she's like, "Okay, Tucker, you're on." And then Danny overshadows Tucker to make Sam go with them as friends, and so I can just imagine Valerie probably has like a crisis over fucking Tucker ghosted her of all people. You have to admit that's a funny mental image.
Mm, fair.
So anyway, the other thing I want to talk about, yeah. So a new power, overshadowing people. I love that power. That's such a cool idea for the time. Like
Yeah.
nothing I don't think any unless I'm like forgetting about some sort of really obscure superhero. I don't think that was ever a superpower I've seen in something like this. So
I'm
That
sure
was
there has to
really
be a Marvel or DC thing that can do it,
there
right?
probably is, but again, that's why I'm saying obscure.
Like very like C or D tier list hero sort of thing, or villain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but I like how he figures it out, and I also like that he overshadows his dad and goes to meet up with the teacher, and he's like kissing up to him. Oh, no wonder you're Danny's favorite teacher, and all that. And then Mr. Lancer is so impressed with Jack that he invites him to the dance, and then because Jack has no recollection of that, he sees Lancer talking to Maddie, and he's like, "Who the hell are you, and why are you talking to my wife?" The comedy may be hit and miss, but in this case, I think this is really funny. Also, we have to mention Rob Paulsen as Jack is just beautiful. In
Agreed.
general, Rob Paulsen has like three voice roles in this show, and each one of them is great.
Yeah,
But
no, I mean it's Ron Paulson, right? You know.
mhm. So I also like the idea that the dragon isn't necessarily a specific ghost. As long as you have the amulet, this is this is what turns you into the dragon, and in a way, in the climax, Sam is the quote unquote villain because she's the one getting angry at Paulina, and Danny has to beat her up. That's
Hmm.
uh, that that's kind of unique for a second episode.
Yeah.
And and also I also love that at the end the Danny and Sam take the final dance and Tucker's like, wait, I'm dateless again, and then the ghost from the beginning it's like, I want to go to the ball, and he's like sometimes being a third wheel is hard,
Mm.
all I'm saying. And moving on to episode three, I guess two big villains. The big is debatable, but at least reoccurring characters that are introduced here. Skulker,
I think
a
this was
fan favorite.
my first like episode I really got into from the show, if I remember correctly. Like, because Skulker's
Mhm.
really fun as a villain,
Yeah, definitely.
and
I
kind of like an
mean,
anti-hero sort of deal too,
yeah,
especially
like
later on.
and
Puff
also I
overs.
guess he's like the first because that's like the lunch lady isn't really that big of a villain afterwards, right?
Mm-mm.
And
Dragon's
like
not
the
either.
dragon, yeah. So Conker is the one that's like consistently shows up afterwards as the main antagonist for an episode, and the Bugs Ghost is just dumb. But I guess every franchise kind of needs like the jokey villain, so he's doing that part well.
Fair.
So and yeah, you know that there are people who are actually I just found out about this. There are people who stand that the Bugs Ghost is the best character in this show.
No,
Now you know. So we have Skulker, who is the
I get it,
hunter.
but no.
He Mhm. So Skulker here is a hunter, and he wants to hunt down Danny because he's one of a kind. Ahem. And he thinks and as a hunter he wants to hunt down someone who is like a very special kind of prey. So he's starting to hunt down Danny, and while he's trying to do an extra credit walk about the purple bag gorilla. Random, but okay. So I enjoy Skulker as like you said, kind of as a quote unquote rival character. He's a main villain, but he's also just this recurring guy that just really wants to capture the main hero, and he would stop at nothing to do so. I like that, and also I enjoy. While silly, I enjoy that he takes Tucker's PDA and then he's just bound by Danny's schedule for
Yeah, no, I
whatever
thought that was a
reason.
good recurring joke personally.
that that was really funny. And he has to do all of that, and eventually, every time, and to some degree, it helps him because he knows where Danny is gonna be. But then he also can capture Danny because there's something else on the schedule. And also, I think I found it funny that the twist at the end is that he's just a tiny little ghost in an armor. That was funny. Moving on, unless you have anything to say.
No, not at the moment. You've
Mhm.
done well. I'll let you keep doing all the talking.
Yeah, sure. Okay, you know what? Just because you said that, Attack of the Killer Garage Sale hit me. What do you think?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, this one kind of coming off of Skulker, I thought this one was a little bit weaker, right? Especially, it's another one of those villains that, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't really return after he's beaten and
No,
everything.
no, it's Techness. He returns back a
He
lot.
does.
On
Oh yeah, that is right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Like I didn't get a chance to refresh like I
I
really
think,
wanted to.
I
It's
think
been
you're
a
jumping
while.
ahead. I think you're
Am
jumping
I?
ahead into
I
the
might
next
be jumping
episode.
ahead. Yeah.
So, but
Yeah,
in
because
terms
that's
of
Box Ghost again, and the
no,
other
it's not.
ghost. Well, no, it's
No,
because something Box Ghost did that we get
in Bugs
another
Ghost,
new ghost.
yeah, like a Bugs Ghost is just kind of there as a again as a joke, but the main villain is like one that appears once afterwards and then never really again.
Mm.
So
Yeah, because this is the one where we first meet Technus. You're right, and like, because this is the one, yeah, where Danny was selling all of like the household junk and everything, and that was another like influence of Technus. Yeah,
mhm. By the way, I just love the joke that Dash is forced to invite Danny to his birthday party because he wants to impress Jazz, and then he tells them, "Listen, if you wanna come to my party, you better get these clothes because there's a dress code."
yeah, that's why
So
he was
that's
selling all this stuff too. That's right.
yeah, so that's why Danny uses, does the garage sale, and he buys the clothes. He goes to the party, but then Dash says that he was actually short on money, so he changed the dress code to to losers, and everyone in the party is just dressed up like Danny, Sam, and Tucker.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh, That's that's the stupidest fucking joke, but it's hilarious.
Mm.
It's this also disturbing, but it's fucking hilarious. It's amazing. Uh, um, but yeah, I think Technos overall though, cool villain idea. Him himself is not necessarily threatening, but I
He's kind
think
of weak as a villain, I feel.
but I like the idea at least at the start that he's just overly monologuing to him about himself.
Mm.
Because they are taking the straight that villains monologue all the time, and then the superheroes catch them. So they'll just, you know what? Let's make that his trait, and I guess it's cute.
Yeah,
It
no, fair.
works. And this is also the first time that Danny has to learn a lesson that he'll have to learn a few more times. Don't be a joke to your friends, bruh.
Yeah, no. This is a recurring thing that comes back up more than one time,
Hmm.
and I think is kind of like one of the annoying things of like I feel like we've learned this lesson multiple times in multiple
Yeah.
episodes. We're doing it again,
Hmm. But yeah, overall, decent enough. Moving on to episode 5, Split and Images.
and this is the one I was confusing it with. This is
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, which we get a little bit of that continuity again. A fight, the fight with Box Ghost ended up destroying Danny's locker, right? And so, like
Yeah.
bringing that back up,
So
Danny's assigned a new locker, and this one gives us another kind of one note villain, but like interesting enough for an episode, but
I
definitely
like the
coming off the
joke.
heels of like the previous two episodes. I think not as strong, if
Yeah.
I remember
If
correctly.
anything, it's an episode that you remember more for Danny himself rather than the villain.
Mm.
But I like the idea of because apparently this is not a thing here because we don't have lockers, but the idea of like a bullying people being shoved into their lockers is apparently a thing.
Mm.
You're an American. Can you tell me, is this really as much of a thing as they make it out to be?
Not when I was in school. I feel no.
Okay,
Maybe
good for
I
what?
think this has always been a thing of like this has been more of like a movie Hollywood thing than it has been like an actual thing that happens. Like I'm sure it has happened, but not on the level that Hollywood portrays it as, right?
Mhm. But either way, because it's such a cliche thing at this point, it's kind of nice to see that there was just this kid who was shoved into the locker so many goddamn times that his ghost is legitimately
Haunting
attached
the
to the
locker.
locker. That's funny. You can tell me that's not funny. That's fucking funny.
It's kind of sad,
No,
actually.
it's funny. In a dark humor kind of way. It's
Fair,
funny.
yeah, fair, fair.
Where the episode starts to lose me though is that Point Dexter is kind of a hypocrite because because he would go after Danny for oh, you're acting like a bully, but what about when Dash shoved Lucky? Who's Lucky? How about when Dash shoved Danny into the new locker? You felt at Point Dexter. What about giving Dash a beating? Hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like not a great lesson either. Like, oh, don't do anything back to your bully. It's kind of weird what the show's trying to tell you, moral right wise.
I guess the idea that they're trying to go to is that you're better off than that if someone bullies you, just remember you're actually better than them. Like to bullying back is not the answer.
Yeah, it's kind of
I
like you should take the high road sort of thing and be better. It's like, yeah, nah, fuck that.
Yeah, and like, but there's also other ways to do that. It's not. It's not the way. Definitely not the way.
Mm. Cough,
Anything
cough.
else?
This probably kind of hints at things we would learn about Butch Hartman later on. Cough, cough.
Oh my god. I now that you mentioned that, imagine if this episode was autobiographical or something. Ugh.
Mm. Moving on,
Well,
though.
moving on to episode 6. What you want? I like this one. I like
Well,
this one
it's
a lot.
like more Tucker focused episode, right? We finally like we start to learn a bit more about Tucker. We get more of a character for him than what we have had, which has been fine up to this point, but like not as strong as some of the other characters we have, especially considering the kind of the other main two characters, which would be Sam and Danny, right?
Hmm. Yeah, so this one shows more that it's also good in just developing their connection because
Mm,
again, like you said, Sam was a bit more developed than Tucker. Mm. And now
yeah.
and then now also in this case Danny also has this thing that he discovers he has a new power, the ghost ray. Cool power, your traditional projectile thing, but it's nice to see him learning a lot more about himself and developing more powers as he goes along. I like that idea. Gives the show a sense of progression.
I swear, don't they do like a Kamehameha and Hadouken joke with that ability, right, in this show?
I mean,
Like
they might do like
reference?
an
I
maybe
swear they
animation
do.
reference, like they are not calling it out by
No, no,
name.
no, they're not doing that because they kind of can't do that. But like I definitely remember them doing like a animation reference to those abilities somewhat.
I think they do here and there. But then again, I think you kind of have to. It's part of
True.
the kind of it's part of the deal probably. So I think this does show that Tucker is basically that him and Danny are really good friends and you buy their bond, but it also shows that Tucker can be a bit jealous of Danny,
Mm.
and this is kind of where this is the focus of the plot, that he wishes he had ghost powers too, and the evil goat Desiree grants him the wish.
Yeah.
On that note, I what there's the point where Paulina wishes to be as cute as an anime character,
Oh
and I'm
yeah,
like,
that's right.
the fuck was that about? And also, I just enjoyed the fact that there's this football game where Dash gets pummeled every other second, and Sam is just there, super sick, and she's like, "I don't like football. Why am I here?" It's like, yeah, that's a good question. Why are you here? Go home. But I also enjoyed that, you would think Desiree is the villain of the episode, but I enjoyed the fact that Tucker is essentially the not necessarily the villain, but the climax is him versus Danny,
Yeah.
and I like that. It's a good climax.
Yeah, no, fair, agreed. And Desiree is kind of just like the triggering factor for it, right? Like
Hmm.
I believe she's also a recurring character that comes back up a few times more as well, right?
She has one more episode where she's the main villain, and every other
Yes.
time she's silent.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh yeah, interestingly, this is the first time we see the ghost catcher, and the first time we see Danny Fenton and Phantom split up, quote unquote.
Mm.
We'll get back to this later. But right now, moving on to episode 7, Bitter Reunions. Now, talk about a classic episode. You probably know
Yeah, I think
why.
everyone remembers this one, right? Like this is kind of like I would say this is kind of like that start of okay, this is the this is when Danny Phantom started to be on more people's radar, right? This is when people started really getting interested in it, I feel, right?
hmm And one of the big reasons for it is the villain Vlad.
Mm.
Vlad Masters slash Vlad Plasmius. Danny's Lex Luthor, or if you will, is introduced in this episode. And good introduction, all things considered. He's a
Yeah.
great villain, and and also I have to say with the recent passing of his voice actor Martin Mull,
Mm.
Martin Mull just really made this character
Yeah,
like.
agreed.
Mhm. And the performance on that is just so good. So but I will say, looking back on it, Vlad's plan in this episode doesn't make much sense.
No, it's really dumb, but that's kind of like Danny Phantom, right? Like a lot of plans are kind of
No,
dumb,
yeah, but let's think about it for a
especially
second,
early
okay?
Danny Phantom.
Yeah, but let's think about this. He sends his bird henchman to find Jack, right, in Amity Park.
Yeah.
Okay, fair. And then Danny fights them, and he's later, and and he's past his curfew, right?
Hmm.
And then, and as soon as Danny Spence is skulking him for being late and past his curfew, and how recently he's just been slacking off, we suddenly get the plot point that Vlad invited them all for the reunion at his mansion. So wait, why didn't you send the Eagles a few minutes ago?
Because fuck you, Jack. That's why, basically.
Uh, okay, but you see, and then they go there, and there's the whole point where the birds are still there. Okay, fine, but then Vlad reveals that he knows of Danny Phantom, right? He heard about this ghost boy that fights other ghosts and shoves them in the thermos and everything. Which fair enough, I guess. I guess you would become suspicious and aware of a person who does that, right? I'm not going to say that no.
Well, he's definitely
But
like you do see him working with Skulker in this episode, so it kind of makes some
yeah,
sense.
yeah. So again, there's a but and then he's kind of surprised that, oh shit, the guy, this guy, this ghost boy is actually Jack's son. Holy shit! I have and then and then like he tries to get Danny on his side, which like I get what he's trying to do, but also, dude, do you really think this is the time? Really? And then in attention, and then he's just decided, okay, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to overshadow Jack and just make everyone in the party hate him. That's my big plan, supposedly,
Yep.
because I want Maddie.
Yep. No one
I
said
don't
Vlad was a
think,
smart man.
yeah, I don't think he thought this plan through, but this is a nitpick for the record. Besides
Mm.
that, good episode. I enjoy it. I love the bit where Jazz tells Vlad that because he's so fucking rich, if he has all this money to buy all the merch, why won't he just buy the team? And he's actually screaming at her because they owned by a bunch of people who won't sell them to me. That's hilarious.
Mm.
I don't know why it just gets me that you can tell that like, god damn it, he wanted to. He wanted to buy the team. He tried, but they wouldn't let him. That's fun. I found this very funny.
Unfair.
So, and also I like during the first fight between Danny and Vlad, where Danny goes, "Oh well, I was hoping to find the birds, but you'll do." And then when Vlad clearly outmatches them, he goes, the vultures were supposed to bring me the idiot, but you'll do." Something like Danny and Vlad the interactions are like some of the highlights of this show. They're
Yeah,
great.
agreed.
And you mentioned Skulker showing up. I also like that that Vlad tells him, "Okay, I didn't pay you to kill him. You're done." And Skulker's, "Yeah, I'm going to check out a book on the gorilla again." It's like, really? You didn't upgrade that? You're
Oh
still
yeah,
using that
that's right.
38? Mm, So, and overall, Vlad is a great villain, and I like that Danny has to basically beat him mostly with his brains rather than his bronze because he has to. Though, to be honest, what he tells Vlad though, is like, "Listen, you either call a truce, or I'm going to reveal us both." And then he goes, "My parents would accept me no matter what, but if my mom found out that you're half ghost, you're done. You'll be lonely for the rest of your life." And it's like, yeah, this right here kind of takes away any sort of risk of Danny's parents ever knowing that he is half ghost because he kind of says they'll accept him no matter what. So,
Well, you say that
huh?
they do some stuff later on in this season and the coming season that like
Mhm, mhm.
I'm just saying, there's things that come back up later that kind of like d- don't agree with that. I guess you could say
Yeah, yeah.
we'll get
Well,
there though.
we'll get there. We'll get there. But the overall good
Yeah,
episode. And now, episode 8, Prisoners of Love. Um, I like the ghost fighting part, but the actual human plot is I think maybe because I've seen it so many times in other stuff, so
it's
it's
really
kind of like,
weak, but Walker's another great villain. Like you get two strong back to back villains in the show. Like I
yeah,
feel over here, right?
yeah.
Especially
And I just
like
and
this
also
is
this
kind
is
of
the
like
first
it's a.
time we see the
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
just it's just the first time we see the ghost zone.
It's true.
Another big recurring
True.
thing in this show.
Yeah, this is our first look inside of it. We've kind of heard a whole lot about it. Now we finally get to see what it looks like inside for real. But yeah, like Walker's really interesting as a villain. Like nothing to write home about yet, but when what you see him do later on is where you're like, oh, Walker's really cool as a villain. Like he's a really good villain.
I would say
Strong
even
here, but way stronger later. I feel like in terms of like character and what he does.
I would even say that he's very underutilized in the entire show, but
True, I would
that's
agree.
no. For this introduction, I like him. Like, it's nice to see just this no nonsense fucking jerk that. And what really sets him up is because he's in charge of a ghost prison, so all the villains hate him too, to some degree. Everyone hates him. He has power over everyone because of his rules.
Well, it's also
That,
interesting, right? Because you think he would be like more of a good guy because, right, he is
yeah.
keeping the villains that Danny has fought previously contained and everything.
hmm
But no, he
Also,
is not a good guy at all.
hmm also, the voice acting for him is really good, and I have to mention James Arnold Taylor is probably my favorite voice actor ever.
Mm,
He's doing great. This is the guy who does Johnny Test people.
fair.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised. Like this is just when you hear that these two are the same dude, you're like, what? But uh, I can't. I'm not. Again with and the plot with Jack forgetting his and Maddie's anniversary is kind of like it's there. I
It's
guess
weak. It's just there for the
you need
drama.
you need the motivation for Danny to go in there and get the gift. So
Yep.
yeah. But on the other hand, the next episode I really like this one, My Brother's Keeper,
Mm.
because besides the the fact that we see Jazz finding out that Danny is half ghost, the I don't think there was really that much emphasis on Danny's relationship with Jazz, which you would think would have because she's his sister. So I like here that you can, and there are hints here and there that she sees him as a very, as as her young brother. She cares for him like a child almost.
It's very
He,
minor though in the background.
yeah, yeah, but but that's the thing. It's in the background. You can just tell that she's very neurotic and thinks she's always right, but and to some degree, Danny thinks she's a show off, and but this one really puts their relationship in the forefront, and I like
Mm,
that because again, as an only child, I felt this was really real. That in terms of she cares about him, and because she does, she might say things that he doesn't want to hear at the moment, but you can tell that he cares about her too, and that when he's been manipulated into thinking that she thinks he's a loser, it does hurt him.
yeah.
And when and you can see that on the one hand, Jazz wants to connect to him, but Danny wouldn't let her unless she starts bringing herself down a bit.
Yep.
So I just enjoy the relationship, and I
No,
also
agreed.
like the idea that because she's such a know-and-all, I think it's a good character moment for her when she decides to let Danny tell her about his secret whenever he's ready. She's not going to force it.
Mm, agreed. Agreed.
So I like this. Now, Spectra is a villain I enjoy on the concept.
Mm,
Because I can tell you, as someone who was also advised to take therapy in at around that age group, it is something that can be scary for you. And the idea of turning that into a villain is both horrifying and funny, which in the concept of the show really works,
yeah.
I think.
Agreed.
Mm. And also, I just love her stupid butler, who like in the climax that he just transforms into whatever. So he transforms into this ninja, and then he's like, "I don't have time for this." Pulls out the thermos, sucks him up. I And again, you have the point near the end where Jazz kind of makes, takes over all of the layers that, Spectra made for herself. And then there's one that's like really old and wrinkly. And then it's like, I hope there's nothing within that. Uh, the show has good humor.
Yeah.
Don't judge me. Now, is there anything else you have to say about the episode?
No,
Because
you've
be,
been doing well. I'm letting you run with it, man.
but the thing is, you have siblings, so maybe you have something to say that I don't.
I mean, no, I think you kind of nailed it right. And like it's fun to see this, and it's like nice to see this kind of sibling relationship, right? I
Hmm.
think like it's a bit of a caricature of a sibling relationship a lot of the times, right? In terms of how it's shown, but that's okay because it is an aspect of having siblings, right? And having like an older sibling or a younger sibling or both.
Hmm. So one last note about this. This was one of the first that they dubbed the show here like years after it ended, right? Somebody decided, you know what, let's fucking dub this for whatever reason, and they gave Spectra the most stereotypical thick Russian accent for whatever reason, and it was so jarring to hear.
That
Like
is hilarious.
like why would you do that? Why is this supposed to be stereotypical of some kind? Because I don't know. It was so out of nowhere, but it gave me a laugh for a bit. Okay, moving on to episode 10, Shades of Grey.
A fairly strong episode, I felt,
Mm,
and we finally get more Valerie.
Yeah, this is the first time that she's an actual character and also, voiced by her respective voice actress for the rest of the series. So there's that. Also, I have to say, one of my favorite moments in the entire show is where because she and Tucker kind of start having a thing going in this episode. And obviously Valerie doesn't really care for Danny Phantom much yet, but she hates Danny Phantom because he cast her because of him is her father lost his job. Because her father lost his job, she's no longer a part of the popular kids. So now she kind of wants to kill Danny Phantom because she gets weapons from Vlad. That's something that that's something that's gonna be built upon only later. And when she does, there's this really funny line by Danny where he goes, two like something like 200 and something girls in the school, and he's crushing on the one with the guns and the grudge. I love that line.
Yep.
Perfect line. Also, I am not relating to this on the level that one of my friends would only date girls that hated me. Yeah, no, actually, you know what? It's completely that. I relate, Danny. I relate.
Fair.
So I talk too much. What do you have to say?
No, I really like this. I liked the idea of like introducing another ghost hunter, right, and getting more getting more, ghost hunters involved, right, and seeing more of that, and it being like, kind of like Jack and Maddie, but someone who's actually competent. Unlike Jack, anyways, because Maddie's always been competent, I suppose, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're getting a little bit more of Vlad and seeing like how he's kind of like being more of a background villain now and trying to do things to get back at Danny and everything, right?
Hmm.
And I believe the ghost dog from this show is a kind of recurring. Like he comes back up later, but
The
not
dog.
super much.
No, he comes back once as like a side gag, and that's really it.
Yeah, but no.
Oh.
Again, another good episode. I thought we're still not
Hmm.
into what I feel like. I feel like the last quarter slash maybe the last half is a lot stronger than the first for the
Hmm.
first season.
Which, speaking of, Fanning the Flames, one of my personal favorite, and not just because it has one of my favorite villains, Amber.
Mm.
Amber's cool. I love Amber.
Yeah, no, that was a really cool idea for a villain, like like a siren ghost sort of thing. Yeah.
Mhm. Not just that, but what's really strong, in high school is this. I think this is one that actually kind of holds up way better after all this time because suddenly there's this one singer that has this one hit, and everyone is going gaga for them. This is something that yeah, I think even today with YouTube is just is really accurate for like the type of high school scenario that they were trying to go for.
Mm.
So Amber is great in that way, and also I think I like it. I love her design. I love the idea that again using music to control your enemies. That's really cool,
Yeah.
and I love that the way to beat her is essentially bad singing.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. It's pretty funny.
And even though it might be a bit stereotypical to see the people around the world chanting her name, but what can you do? I guess.
No, fair.
Uh,
No, and this
but,
is also like we finally Danny and Sam finally get together.
I won't say they get together, but this is the first one. This is the first episode that
This is the hint
pushes.
of the future relationship.
Yeah, this is the hint of like, oh yeah, they're the end game. Don't even think for a second that we're not gonna
Like,
do that.
except we have to go through the other relationship before we can get to that relationship,
Hmm.
though.
I
We'll
guess
get there.
we'll get there in time. In time.
I'm just gonna keep hinting at it because it's hilarious, and I know it's one of the
Let's be
reasons
honest.
why
If,
you have
if
problem. Why you?
people who are listening to this know where this is going, but
If you've seen the show, yeah, and I just love it as I just love doing this as well because I'm just gonna remind everyone. HC said we're gonna talk about a certain character and the problems they have in later seasons and how they were utilized and not utilized, and this is one of those issues. I'm pretty sure that you
i-
have.
if you're listening to this, you saw the show, you know exactly what I mean. There's no need to build this up. Everyone
No, no,
knows.
no, 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 no. Keep it. We gotta keep them coming back. HC, what are we talking about? Maybe they don't know.
Yeah, they
This
know.
show is 20 years old. This season is 20 years old,
They
anyways.
know. They know.
I feel
Let's
like
let.
there are people who are young enough now. They have been born and are old enough now that like they could go like they've just never heard of or seen this show. Like they are young enough.
Mhm. Well, I guess just to sum this up, because there's probably not much to say, but Fanning the Flames is a great episode. Love Ember as a villain. Moving on.
Oh, fair,
Teacher
fair.
of the Teacher of the Year. Again, another one that I like because I think this really captures
Yeah,
the
this is
school
when Technus
mentality.
comes back as well. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one where Technus comes back and he takes over the game that Danny and Tucker are playing. There is a bit of like, oh, girls can play video games, but Sam kind of
Yeah.
shuts them up at the end, so I can let that slide. And something that I find hilarious is when Danny is studying for the makeup exam, he sees the picture of Mr. Lancer's sister, and then after he passes the test, Lancer goes, the old sister trick
Oh,
works again. How can no one tell that's just me in a dress? It's like, questions,
yeah.
questions,
Dumb
but.
shit. I do want to say though, we've not talked about Mr. Lancer too much, right? He's actually like kind of a fun character in a way, right?
Oh yeah. I like how whenever he's surprised by something, he's just yelling out book titles.
Mm. Well, it's also like he's kind of treated like a bit of a joke, kind of treated like a bit of a villain at times, but then he has these moments where like no, he does care about being a teacher, right? And like teaching the kids. Like cuz
Yeah,
like this is an episode of, this is like I feel like an example of that, right? Where like you can say, "Oh no,
but
wait, he's actually not a half bad teacher actually."
yeah, because like if you're going for fanning the flames, actually, he's basically like, we need to educate these people so that we will look good, that the school would look good because it affects my paycheck. Here, you can actually see that he does kind of care for Danny. He wants Danny to succeed,
Mm.
and and he even says, whenever I look at you, I just see my failures. I don't see anything else. And he wants to help Danny out. It's just that Danny keeps faffing, as they say.
Mm.
But I like the idea that he does help him out, and Danny does manage to pass the test, and eventually they all come up to play the game and beat Techness. And as soon as they're about to win the game, Mr. Lancer beats them all.
Yep.
That's a cool point. And also
He's
he
a
says,
gamer.
once and also, once again, I have all seven keys. How many times did he beat this fucking game that even teenagers can beat? How many? I ask you.
He's a gamer, man.
Yeah, I get that he's a gamer, but Danny, Sam, and Tucker are as well.
Nah, Mr. Lancer is the gamer though.
Apparently. But again, there's just something about the vibe of this episode that really kind of takes me back to like, yeah, this was basically school to some degree. You'd go in the morning, you'd get the studying done, and then you'll just meet up with friends afterwards, and you'd either play a game or do something else. Just there's a really fun vibe to it, which I
Fair.
like.
Yeah, fair.
So interestingly, the next episode on the list is Fright Night, but everyone knows that that's not true. The real episode 13 is
Mm-hmm.
just called 13.
Mm-hmm.
So which one do you
Boo.
want to do first?
Boo.
Don't boo me. That's what they
I
decided.
know, but boo. uh, let's just do it. I say let's do it because I believe release order Fright Night was first, right?
Yeah, like a Fright Night earlier because it's the Halloween episode, so they wanted
Yeah,
that out by Halloween.
because this was like the day of or the day before Halloween when it first released, way back when.
Yeah,
Rare, you don't get that as often much anymore.
yeah, but well, because today everyone is just doing streaming, so.
True, but still,
Mhm. So anyway, so let's just talk about Fright Night first. It's here,
yeah,
might as well. So I like the idea of having a Halloween episode in a show that's about ghosts, like
yeah, it makes sense.
only
Like, why would you
shootings.
not? You can't not, right?
hmm The thing is, the actual competition of the haunted houses. I guess that's fun. That's good. That's kind of cute. And now, what Danny does to win this, I get it. It's supposed to be he's supposed to learn a lesson. He's supposed to learn that what he did is wrong. But I also think maybe this is going a bit too far because in a way, Danny kind of caused this catastrophe, and yes, he fixes it by the end. But it's also, dude, what the hell?
I mean, that's kind of another recurring thing that kind of gets old in that a lot of the villains are Danny's fault more often than not.
To some degree, yes.
And it would I think that's probably like one of the bigger criticisms I would have of the show in general is that it would be nice if not all or most of the villains were Danny's fault. And like if there were
Hmm.
some that just kind of happened either because of other people or they just kind of happened because they happened.
Yeah. But and also the Fright Night in general isn't that interesting of a villain to me.
I like the design personally. I
Like
think the
I like the
design's pretty cool.
design, but essentially, but the villain himself is not. Eh, I mean, he's fine. He's there. If anything, the one thing that really sticks with me is that Lancel says at the end that Danny won the competition, and Danny tells him, "No, I cheated." And Lancel is like, "I don't care. You win." And then just because Jack and Maddie assaulted him, he's like, "I changed my mind. Dash wins. You're getting detention."
Yeah.
But I think for an Halloween episode, it does a good job with the environments and designs and everything. It does its job. It's kind of it's halfway, I think.
Yeah, not fair.
Okay, so 13. Fun note: tells the ghost octopus to watch with the ink because he just cleaned the suit. Wouldn't ink make a black suit look better?
No.
Fair enough. I'm not going to argue
Good.
that.
Don't ask anymore. Don't.
Honestly, this is another episode that I'm just kind of like about when I'm looking back at it. Like,
I will say Johnny 13 though, fun character as well.
no, he's a fun
Meh
character.
episode, but fun character.
No, fun character. Definitely. I'm just, I guess again, it's just one of those things that you've seen so many times that there's this
Fair.
old dude that starts dating the teenage girl, but the parents are like, no, he's dangerous. He's bad news, and we've seen this plot so many goddamn times, and here there is a nice twist to it that he's actually trying to turn Jazz into his girlfriend, Kitty. But it's like, I don't know. There's something. I get the point.
Fair. No, fair. Not really like this episode and Fright Night not like the strongest collection of episodes, right? But like
Hmm.
decently okay villains and really good designs for the villains as well, I thought, but yeah, nothing to really write home about. Like you've seen this episode before basically.
Hmm. But the next episode, I think, is really interesting. We see Walker coming back, and
Yes.
he has you, Wolf.
Aha.
Only reason I want to do this show. I was waiting
Uh-huh.
for
You've
the
been waiting
entire
for
week.
this joke. Only this joke.
Well, to be honest, there are other reasons I wanted to because but either way, yeah, I might as well. So he does have a wolf ghost named Wolf, and he's sending him after Dan to capture Danny. But in the process, he's actually taking over the entirety of Amity Park, and
Let's forget
he
Bullet
and
too.
yeah, and that's one of the parts that I really like is that Danny for a second really has no idea who's overshadowed by a ghost and who isn't, to the point he actually attacks his parents, thinking that they have ghosts controlling them,
Mm.
only to figure out that that they weren't overshadowed. And then the big point that I found as a kid, it was kind of shocking to me that even though they managed to stop the invasion, Walker did win technically because now Danny's seen as a threat.
Yeah, like this is kind of what
Because
feels like Danny's first big loss because he no longer has like, because yeah, like you said, like he is the threat now. He is the thing that everyone's trying to hunt down and take down and everything. Especially like his
Mhm.
own parents are basically contracted out to hunt him down, find him, and take him out now,
Yep.
which was
So the
wild at the time. I thought.
yeah, again for a show again and for a superhero show, this was really new at the time. It was like, damn, the villain kind of won to some degree.
And this is what I would say. I think kind of starts the real kind of like story arc for Danny Phantom moving forward, right? I would say
Hmm.
because like season 2 and
Because
season 3 pull a lot from this kind of
mhm.
episode.
And also, I think in the next one, you can in the next episode you can kind of tell that they are starting to like up. They're starting to mention him in the news, and they're starting to name him. Like I kind of jumping the gun here. They are starting to call him Inviso Bill
Yeah.
whenever he shows up in the news. So this is a kind of a thing that he wants to be recognized as this one thing. He came up with the name Danny Phantom, but now nobody really cares about this, and they're just like, oh, there's this evil ghost boy around that attacked the mayor. Let's call him
Visual
Inviso
Bill.
Bill.
I love that though.
Yeah, it's stupid, but it works.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this is gonna segueing us into Lucky in Love. Um, I I like this episode. This is a better episode for Johnny 13 because now we're actually
Yes.
because now we actually see this thing that Danny used to his advantage, and it's a really cool power. Now we see it being used against him, and I found it really cool.
No, fair.
And just in general, the opening when you don't even know that Paulina has been overshadowed, and she goes, "Danny, you're the ghost boy." This is like, oh shit moment.
Oh yeah.
That's a and and then I enjoy the joke that Mr. Lancer asks Danny where he was, and Paulina's like, "He's with me. We're dating now." And Lancer is like, "Oh, okay, Mr. Foley. I don't think you've been dating recently, so can you clean this mess?" Thank you. Apparently, this matters to teachers if you have a girlfriend or
It
not.
matters to Mr. Lancer, let's be clear. Mr.
Fair
Lancer
enough,
is a different kind of teacher.
as we noticed. Yeah.
Hmm. He is a gamer after all.
Yeah, there you go. He he's a gamer and he respects your relationship boundaries. What
Yeah.
a guy.
And if you don't have a
He,
girlfriend, he makes you do extra work because
there
wow,
you
you're a
go.
loser. God.
Yeah. And
It's
and I
always
just
nice
love that,
though in the background seeing like Lance
and I
get his
also
kind of comeuppance every now and again, right?
yeah. And I also love when so now Danny's part of the cool kids club, so Dash can't insult him, and he's like, "Welcome to the club, joke. I mean, pal." And then at the end, when Paulina technically dumps Danny, he's like, you can tell that he missed so much to making terrible puns to insult Danny. Like the way he says "fanted," like he's having so much fun with this. He was waiting for it. He was
Like it's
suffering.
back finally. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Uh,
Poor.
Reminds me, we're gonna talk about this obviously later, but I think one of my favorite insults he tells then is, "Watch it, Fen tune in tonight." I don't know why it's so stupid, but it's
It's
hilarious.
great though. Dash's
Yeah,
Dash's voice actor is so good. I feel too. Like
yeah.
he sells it really well. I
I've
think.
read an interview with him somewhere that he said that he inspired the voice by a mocking he did to his actual bullies in school. So
Makes sense.
it was probably very therapeutic. Well, anyway, to Lucky in Love again. So I like this plot because, like I
Yeah.
said, suddenly Danny's
It
powers are being used against them, and I also like that now that Paulina is busy with Danny, Tucker tries to date Star, Paulina's friend, and Star is just being a bitch to him. And then by the end, when they decide, and she decides to break it up with him, and she's like, "I hope we can still be friends," and he's just like, "No, fuck you, bitch! I'm not doing that again." Even though we kind of forget about it in future episodes, but what can you do?
don't worry about it, HC. Don't worry about it.
And then Sam takes Kwan to like a gut poetry night, and that's just hilarious for all the wrong reasons. But and I also love that Danny just wants Kitty away from him, so he just approached Johnny 13 and he's like, "You got to get Kitty away from me. I need
Oh
my
yeah.
space. I can't." Like, the poor dude is desperate. But I will say, Kitty's kind of a bitch.
True.
I don't really care for her all that much.
Again,
But
fun
but
villain
I
though,
like
fun design, but like,
fun design, fun villain, but like when you really think about it, it's like the in the previous episode with she's just kind of like, "Don't forget me, Johnny, bring me back," and everything, and he does all of that to bring her back, and then suddenly she's like, "You know what? I want to go for Danny because Johnny's really annoying me." It's like, talk, go to a ghost therapist or something.
no, never.
I can't argue with that. But one more thing is, I like when she's recapping to Danny why she took over Paulina. She says that she originally meant to overshadow Sam, and she goes, "You like her, don't you?" And then he's like, "What? I mean, and then he's like, "Actually, no, no, you're not getting away from this. Finish. Go on."
We're building it up.
Well, next episode, Maternal Instinct. A lot of people, including the fan base and who worked on the show, say this is one of their favorites.
Yeah, no, makes a
Would
lot of sense. It's a very strong episode.
Yeah, I love this one.
I don't, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's definitely up there, right? Like, it's really good. Like, cause it's a
Mhm.
Maddie and Danny episode, and like you actually get to see Maddie and I guess Jack a little bit try to actually be parents for their kids for once, which has been
Yeah,
something they have been horrible at so far,
and
especially
also like
Turk.
and like there's a good development for Jazz too, because up until
Yes.
this point she was kind of ashamed of her parents being into ghost hunting, and here she kind of realized, you know what? I enjoy fighting ghosts. I
Yeah.
like that.
No, yeah.
And just in general, Danny having to survive without his powers, and having to beat Vlad in at his own game to some degree. I just really great episode.
I think Maddie and Danny's interactions though take like
Yeah.
they're
Um,
the star of the show, I feel.
Well, yeah, this is definitely a more episode about them. Again, I think it really speaks to the entire idea of teenagers, and that a parent and a kid can have a really strong bond when the kid is still young, but then when the kid grows up, they're kind of becoming more distant. So there's that. And but I also like that too. There's a really there's a scene in this episode that really hurts, that I found really kind of not hurts, but it's kind of like oof, when Maddie tries to connect to Danny, but Danny keeps away from her because she has the specter deflector, and whenever she touches him, it actually hurts him. So on the
Mm,
one hand, he stays away from her not because he doesn't want to, but because it legit hurts him when she touches him. That's yikes.
mm. Still
So,
really good episode.
and with that said, Vlad is back and Vlad is great.
Yep.
I I just love that eventually he does he tries to hide it, but then he's just like, actually, you know what, no, I'm just gonna say that I'm into Maddie. I'm gonna tell her that that and then when they come back to him and he's actually like, something, yeah, let me get the perfume. I'm gonna be like, dude, you're fucking creepy.
It's Vlad. What do you expect from
It's
him?
Vlad, yeah, but I'm also like, yeesh. Well, but overall, great episode. I think just everything about it, just well, be it for the action, the character interactions,
Mm.
the plot idea. There are a lot of great stuff that you can, and especially because it's so late into the season, you already know these characters, so now you get to see them grow in terms of both their abilities and just their relationships. I really like that. And
We
that
should mention this.
brings us,
Just gonna briefly mention, right?
yeah.
This is written by Sib Ventress.
Mm-hmm.
This is the person who's the writer for this particular episode. I would go on to, I would argue Sib is probably like the writer behind some of the more stronger episodes in the series, I think,
Hmm.
for the most
I'll
part.
need to I'll need to look
Like
into
kind of looking at the
what.
wiki and seeing which ones they've wrote on. So like, I'm gonna give them some credit. I think they deserve it. I think they're kind of the person behind some of the more stronger episodes.
All right, Cyber Ventress, if you're listening to this, awesome job.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to life lessons. First time that Skulker is voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, who I
Yeah.
think is a better voice. He
Yeah,
does
way
great.
better.
Mhm.
I forget why
And
did they change VAs?
I don't know why, but it's just, you know what, it's just that they changed them.
No,
And
fair.
I
Yeah,
don't think there was ever a reason,
fair
but
enough. There might have been,
I
and we don't
actually
remember. Let us know if you do.
from what I've seen, I guess probably Kevin Michael Richardson is probably a cheaper voice actor to get, most
Mm.
likely,
Oh,
because the other one was considered like a special guest, so
mm.
maybe keep bringing him back was becoming more expensive. But I prefer
But
this. I prefer
yeah,
Kevin.
I like Kevin way better. Unfortunately, like
Mhm,
love the other guy, but Kevin's such a better voice for Skulker. I think.
mhm. And on that note, we get Valerie comes back, and I enjoy that. I just enjoy this dynamic that the episode starts with Danny and Valerie fighting with Valerie fully in costume, and then they hear the school bell ring, and Valerie is like, "I'll catch you later, punk," and he's like, "Yeah, I'll be ready, creep." And then both of them are just flying away. Danny transforms back. Valerie tucks in the costume, and they both meet back in class. And they're like, and they have the exact same dynamic. But it's interesting to me that Danny knows he just fought her. Valerie has no idea.
Yeah.
I just enjoy this dynamic. And also, there's the point where they are given the task of doing like the life lessons task together. And then he goes, "I am so not kissing the bride." And she goes, "What makes you think you can?" And I'm just thinking, I'm the main character. I had the script for the next season. You're gonna have it bad for me. Well, so let me ask you something. Not sure if I this is this a thing in the States? Is this something you guys do?
The taking care of the fake baby thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's an actual thing
It
you
is an
fucking do?
actual thing. Yes.
Oh
I
my
have
god.
had to do. I actually remember. I don't know if we still do it now. I hope not. But yes, I have actually had to do this in a class before. Yes.
I remember
I
it's one of those
shit
things
you
that I
not.
keep yeah, it's one of those things I keep wanting to ask my American friends if they do
I
this
don't know
for
if
real and they
everyone's done it, but I know I did.
you poor soul. But hey, might as
But
um
you should definitely ask some more of them. I would
uh,
guarantee at least a couple of them, if they're as old as me, they have done this.
you know what? I think I
And it's
asked Jaya.
about as
I
fun as you would
I
think.
I asked Jaya about this, I think, and she said that she didn't, but I'll have to double check.
Mm.
Oh well.
It
Well,
might be more of like a southern states thing than not than northern, maybe, because I think she lives like more to the north in the US, if I'm not mistaken.
she's in Florida,
Oh, Florida,
so
never mind. I'm horribly wrong.
I'll have to ask more. But
My
anyway,
apologies.
the one thing that I want to bring up, Tucker and Sam kissed by mistake, maybe, and then they just say that never happened, and yeah, they treat it as if it never happened. It's like, no, I think this should be talked about. What just happened?
It was talked about. The fandom turned it into a ship, HC.
No, they didn't. At least not in the parts of the fandom that I've seen.
I don't think anyone did ever. I think everyone like agreed and just never spoke of it.
Yeah, I think obviously this was probably just thrown in there for the sake of a joke, but it's like,
This was
oh,
thrown in there for the sake of a joke, but this was the writers like, but wait, if. if everyone actually does like it, nobody like okay, nobody liked it. All right, never
No,
mind then.
no, I think everyone just took it as a joke, but then they never thought about the implications that this will never happen. Like, if two friends accidentally kissed like that, I think there would be a lot more awkwardness, and not just that never happened. Okay,
Yeah,
bye.
be perfectly fine.
Um, if anyone in the audience had something like this, let us know. I'll be interested in hearing that story. Anyway, so this is a good episode for Danny and Valerie
Yeah.
in terms of both Danny Phantom and Fenton interacting with Valerie, because to one degree, Valerie is kind of just telling Danny, "Hey, I'm just counting on you to get me a good grade," and Danny has none of that shit, and he tells her, "You better pull your weight in this thing." And then when he actually goes on the journey with her as Danny Phantom, he finds out that she actually has to go through she has two jobs technically. She doesn't get paid to hunt him, but she does get paid for being the mascot at the Nasty Burger.
Mm.
And that's where he starts actually feeling a bit sorry for her. And just in general, I think their interactions in this episode are really funny. Like when he tells her, "I am a ghost. I can guide you out of her. Why should I trust you?" And he shows her that they are tied up. Okay, you made your point.
Well, it.
That's
I will say I think like I get it right what they're kind of going for, but like they kind of go for this thing of like, oh, she works two jobs because her dad lost his job and everything, right? And it's kind of like it's been really hard and everything, right? But at the same
Mhm.
time, like she works two jobs because she's trying to keep up a lifestyle that she really shouldn't try to be keeping up, right? If I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, because she wants to still be one of the popular kids and hang out with all them, but like they spend a ton of money at all times. So
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
it's something
if
they
you
don't
just
really
ditch
talk about.
if you just ditch your friends that don't seem like great friends, you'd probably be way better off.
Yeah, but I think it's more that she wants the life she knew back
I mean,
more than
fair.
anything. To be honest, again, there's some parts of this show don't really age well,
Yeah, no, fair,
so.
fair. Like it's definitely like I think if you saw this kind of story in a more modern show, like say Owl House or something like that, it would definitely be done a lot
Oh
differently, I
yeah,
feel.
definitely. In a way, you could argue that Amity's whole arc is what if Valerie was done right in this
True,
scenario.
true, very true.
Hmm. So moving on to the $1 million ghost
Another Vlad
episode,
episode.
another Vlad episode. I think though of the three in this season, the weakest one until the end.
I did love the parody Ghost Hunters though.
Yeah, I
You get
know
the parodies
those
of
are
Men in
funny.
Black, of Scooby Doo. Like
Yeah.
the parodies are
Uh,
fun.
the- and I love that the men in white, as they are called, these are gonna come back. These are actual villains that are gonna show up. I
True.
love that. And but yeah, I think this was just a really it was supposed to be kind of an homage to Scooby Doo and a lot of other stuff.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
kind of
fun
funny.
though. I enjoy it. Like not a strong Vlad episode, but still a fun one though.
But I also enjoy the fact that Vlad is deteriorating Jack to self doubt, but then at the end, Jack is the one that beats Vlad up, and that's really cool to
Yep.
see.
Yep. Nice to see Jack actually have a W for once.
Hmm.
He
So
gets so
yeah,
few.
not a lot to say about this one. Like
Just fun.
it's all right. It's there. Whatever.
Like weaker compared to like the string of episodes we've had that have been fairly strong up to this point, right?
Mm-hmm. But wrapping this all up with episode 20, our season finale, Control Freaks. One thing I want to say. I was watching Two and a Half Men at the time.
Uh huh.
You don't know where this is going.
Nope. I do know where it's going because John Cryer plays Freak Show.
Yeah. So that's a fucking mood switch to hear that one day I'm watching Danny Phantom with him in it, and he has this laugh, and then suddenly I'm watching Two and a Half Men, and he's doing the same exact laugh, and I'm like, oh shit, wait a minute, it's the same guy.
Yep.
So, I hope you're not afraid of us, the circus people, because this episode may traumatize you from it. But I
I
think,
I
yeah,
like this episode, but it definitely feels like kind of a meh season ender, I think.
on the one hand, I kind of like the idea for it as a season finale, but in terms of the episode in general, yeah. I
Well,
like the idea that, you know what, after this entire season, suddenly you get an episode where Danny is kind of legit the bad guy, because Freak Show is controlling him. I think that's a really interesting idea for a season finale, especially when the entire season up until this point, Danny was just trying to uphold his reputation as a good ghost. And so in that way I think it works, it works well. But yeah, the climax is kind of when things are like, it kind of ends a bit anticlimactically, to be honest.
I feel Freak Show's much stronger in the next episode he shows up in than this one
Yeah, because I think also in this one
as a
he's
villain.
basically just basically, eh, it's also interesting to have a villain that's just, an actual human. He's not a ghost. I enjoy that idea.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, like you said, he's there's something missing is the point. Everything about the episode otherwise works. It's just that when it's all wrapped up, it's kind of like, really, this is how we end the season? Okay.
Pretty much. Not a bad episode to end it, like not a terrible episode, just doesn't feel like a great episode to end it on. And like you said, it just kind of feels like something's missing from it. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
have that like season ending pomp. Yeah, I guess you would say, right? Like
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of putting it. There's not that season finale pump that you would get out of other season finales, but
mm.
it's a decent watch either way.
Yeah, no,
I enjoy it.
it's fun. It's fine. Nothing wrong with it.
Hmm. But yeah, look at that. We already gone through the entirety of the first season. Holy shit!
Now on
And
to the better season, season two.
next week, because this it's still an hour and something that we spent
Are
talking
you
about this.
ready for the 6 hour episode?
No, 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 no. I don't have the time. I need to sleep. I have work tomorrow, man. Don't do this to me.
No, but
Uh,
final thoughts. Danny Phantom season one,
to
not
be
bad.
honest, not bad at all for a first season. There are some hiccups, but to be
Mm.
honest, what show doesn't have hiccups,
And as we
especially in the first season?
said, like coming back to watch it, it definitely like shows its age and doesn't hold up to the test of time as well.
But I would still say my enjoyment from this show doesn't stray just from nostalgia. There are
Mm.
legit parts of it that I enjoy.
Agreed.
The humor lands for the most part. The action is great. The music, like we said,
Oh
chef's
yeah.
kiss. And the characters are fun for the most part. Like I enjoy Danny, I enjoy Tucker, I enjoy Vlad, of course. So yeah, there's a lot to appreciate here. If you are trying to watch a show in order, then I'm glad that I can say you don't need to skip season one. You can start with season one and you'll be satisfied. And yeah, season one of Danny Phantom, overall, a good time.
Just don't look over in the corner and see the shadow of Butch Hartman, and you'll be good to go.
Again, he's no longer working for Nickelodeon, so you can just turn on the light and the shadow will disappear.
Fair.
No. So, anything else to say before we wrap up?
Nah. Go watch Danny Phantom. There you go.
Yeah.
If you haven't, if you
Uh,
somehow haven't.
yeah, but if you haven't, you should probably not be here because we just spoiled the entire season.
Nah.
So there's that. Well, either way, this was all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed it. What are your thoughts on Danny Phantom Season 1? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with capital B, capital C, and on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care and go in ghost.
Bye bye.